Everyone saw a cursed monster, but the moment he appeared, I pulled him into a desperate embrace. I pressed my face to his dark fur as my arrogant classmates roared with laughter at my supposed stupidity. The dean just sighed clearly, regretting every second of the elite training he'd wasted on a dead end like me. I kept my head high and walked away, immediately selling off every possession I had for quick cash. That money bought 50 kilograms of raw beast flesh, the only fuel capable of igniting the fire in his soul. I laid a hand on his tiny skull, and a digital notification chimed like a gunshot in my mind. The system offered an eternal blood bond. I didn't blink before slamming the confirmation button. A white-hot agony tore through my spine, sending me screaming into the dirt, while the crowd mocked my collapse. Amidst the jeering, my former flame, Ruyan, stepped forward with a face full of plastic pity. "I'm doing this for your own good," she lied, claiming commoners like us needed better prospects than a failure. She'd already replaced me with a high-ranking knight who could actually secure her future. I just pushed myself up and offered a cold shrug, letting her know I didn't give a damn. My lack of tears frustrated her, and she turned her back on me with a huff of annoyance. Her friend sneered, asking why she even bothered wasting her breath on a bottom feeder. "He's literally holding a house pet," she scoffed. "He's beneath you now." I ignored the background noise, focusing entirely on the burning tether fusing our spirits together. The runt had awakened a triple S rank gluttony talent, capable of converting any matter into god-tier power. The soul-shredding pain was a bargain for an ability that exists only in fairy tales and legends. This little guy was a walking national treasure, and nobody in that room had a clue. I held the shadow black pup close and whispered his new name, Ammon. Our real work was just beginning. He licked my hand before lunging at the first slab of meat, devouring it in a single terrifying gulp. His evolution point ticked up by 0.5 as his physical stats jumped instantly from one bite. My heart hammered against my ribs. If he kept this up, he'd become a god before the week was out. Then a secondary pulse of raw energy surged from the bond and flooded my own nervous system. The system had a hidden feedback loop, funneling a percentage of his gains directly into my body. I immediately dropped 6,000 credits to secure a mountain of premium raw protein. I called Ammon forth, and he descended on the pile of red flesh with a primal ravenous hunger. Every muscle fiber in his body began to warp and thicken, fueled by the relentless metabolic shift. Within 30 minutes, the tiny pup had transformed into a 2-meter engine of pure destruction. Every attribute climbed by 10 points, dwarfing the growth rates of even the most elite summoned beasts. This evolutionary shortcut was closing the gap between me and the prodigies in record time. I didn't hesitate to trigger the next stage, watching as the deep power within him began to vibrate. An explosion of dark energy shrouded him, while his genetic code was rewritten in real time. His very essence was transcending the limits of the biological world. He mastered rending and berserker traits, tripling his mass and pushing his primary stats past 50 points. At merely level 1, he was already outperforming legends that people spend lifetimes trying to tame. While others chased triple S myths, I was standing next to one that had never been seen before. I took my new partner home to recover and prepare for the storm that was coming. The college entrance exam was approaching, and I was ready to show them what a monster looks like. Thousands of nervous students packed the plaza that morning, while the proctor droned on about the trial rules. The atmosphere was electric with tension as the city's top high schools prepared to face off. Even the most arrogant jocks were visibly shaking, trying to hide their terror behind loud insults. Ye Chao stood there looking smug, with Rian draped on his arm in her elegant sorceress robes. They looked at me with pure contempt just as the bronze gates began to groan open. A freezing, deathly wind erupted from the shadows beyond the portal, signaling the start of the massacre. Students huddled around the displays, scanning our fate. My academy drew the forest of buried bones, a notorious graveyard. Difficulty levels are standardized. So why was everyone so paralyzed with fear? Is the elite school zone easier? "Pipe down," Lewin snapped, silencing the nervous kid behind him. "That terrain is a suffocating maze of thorns and ambushes. Watch the shadows. Stay lethal. Trust nothing." Lewin then revealed a heavy, custom-built tactical watch. A master mechanic crafted this tracker. It broadcast your kill count and live data to judges, An iron bell tolled, launching the finals. A girl in a white silk dress glided forward. Shrouded in a chilling azure glow, the striking prodigy vanished into the dungeon's maw first. That was Su Li Su, the third school's ace. She ran solo, teammates only dilute the glory. True predators hunt alone. Thousands of younger students packed the square eyes glued to screens. Through the frantic whispers, a psychic tether hooked my mind. White light consumed me. Solo it is. With the field cleared, a level 20, veteran stepped up, his posture rigid and commanding. He manipulated the shimmering water display to start the broadcast. Suddenly, a flare ignited. A kid from our academy quit instantly. Our instructors bowed their heads in collective disgrace. You could feel the weight of 10,000 mocking eyes burning into our school's reputation. Limon's jaw tightened as he watched. On the liquid screen, my silhouette materialized, scanning the brush. Trapped in the choking thicket, my face registered pure, unadulterated shock at the environment. Who knew the second-tier school had such heavy hitters after yesterday's job awakening? Lewin stayed silent, unable to respond. He knew my secret. I was just a lowly summoner. But inside that green hell, I pivoted, my senses sharpening into a cold, predatory edge. A rustle from above. No thought, just reflex. A 3-foot staff materialized in my hand. A massive toxic green parasite lunged from the canopy, its mandibles dripping with hunger. I drove a burst of light through its core. It split apart, crashing like a broken toy. Threat neutralized. 5 experience points flooded my system as the creature hit the dirt. My wrist device chimed score plus 15. Outside, the entire crowd went deathly silent. That's no ordinary summoner, someone breathed. That reaction speed requires an insane agility stat. Honestly, even I was a little rattled by how fast I'd moved. Training was one thing, but this was pure instinct. I pushed deeper into the emerald brush. I aimed for the forest's heart. Suddenly, a piercing, inhuman shriek shattered the heavy silence. Grotesque silhouettes detached from the shadows. Mottled, sickly green skin. Goblins. The manuals call them breeding-obsessed savages that would eat their own kind for a snack. I counted the pack. At least 50 or 60 of the bastards were closing the circle. A swarm meant certain death. I reached into the void of my mind and called Ammon. A supernova of light erupted. Ammon appeared, her eyes radiating pure, unadulterated lethality. She didn't wait for a command. She launched herself like a heat-seeking missile at the horde. She vaporized the lead goblin's head instantly. The left flank immediately dissolved into pure panic. On the right, the monsters howled, swinging rusted blades with every bit of desperate strength. Sharp bone shards bit into her hide. A brutal thud echoed as a strike hit her skull. One lunged with jagged claws. She caught it and crushed its head like a ripe grape. A pathetic death rattle escaped it. Then Ammon stopped holding back her true power. It became a massacre. She tore through them, until even those brainless beasts felt primal terror. Nobody leaves this clearing, I muttered, watching her intercept the runaways. Ammon pivoted to hunt them down. I wasn't about to stay on the sidelines. I lunged to execute the nearest survivor. Outside, the audience was in a total frenzy. Where did we find this monster? A senior this fierce is completely unheard of. The bleachers were a riot. No way, someone hollered over the roar. He's gotta be hacking the system. Everyone had me written off as Monster Chow the second those green skins crawled out. Clearly, I didn't get the memo. My summon and I were turning the pack into scrap metal. Back in the booth, I saw Limen finally crack a relieved grin. He's scaling way too fast. That kind of raw growth potential, it's honestly terrifying. This is top-tier stuff bordering on professional league. We finally found the prodigy who can put this school on the map. He barked at the assistant. Check the stats. The registrar has him sitting at 560 points, sir. He's likely our heavy hitter, but that kid from the 3rd district is a literal nightmare. They're sitting at 830 points, absolutely crushing the competition. Li Minji and the staff nearly choked. And the crazy part, they've been in that dungeon for less than 20 minutes. That kid's already gunning for the state title. Deep in the pit, the goblin remains started glowing like neon flares. That energy slammed into me and I hit level 2 in a heartbeat. The climb didn't stop there. Power surged through me. My HUD glitched out, turning into this bottomless red void that was starving for more. I'm using Black Name's feedback to stay grounded. My score's already a total lock for the next district, but I'm not stopping at passing. Beside me, Black Name was busy shredding through what was left of the goblins. Time to move, partner. The real feast is just starting. See, goblins are like rats, they never travel alone. If a scouting party is out here, the hive has to be close. 10 minutes of dead silence only proves my point. This isn't just some programmed dungeon. It's a living, breathing ecosystem with its own dark secrets. There's no magic reset button here. It's strictly the law of the jungle: kill or be killed. Out of nowhere, bone-tipped spears came whistling past my ears. Screaming goblins poured out of the cracks like a flood. As they swarmed, I didn't even flinch. My staff snapped into a razor-sharp blade in a heartbeat. I moved like a ghost, taking a head off with one clean, effortless swing. I went full beast mode. I dove straight into the middle of them, my steel singing, as I danced through the chaos. I was a butterfly in a hurricane. Only my wings were made of cold steel. The audience was losing their minds. The faculty and the kids back at school number 2 were staring at the screens in total shock. His form is perfect. It's surgical. Every strike is aimed right for the jugular with zero wasted effort. I was the only show in town now. Liu Wenzi looked rattled. I guess I played the average card too well for 3 years. This is where it gets hairy. 13 rabid monsters are boxing me in, and the window for an exit is closing fast. Great, now the casters are joining fire and ice. Taking them all on at once is a suicide mission. Every instructor watching the feed leaned in their knuckles, turning white from the tension. With the elites in play, the mob stopped being a mindless swarm. They actually started fighting like a coordinated unit. The fire breather started chanting, buffing his crew before summoning golf ball-sized flames that glowed with lethal heat. I kept low, zigzagging as those heat-seeking projectiles whistled inches past my head. The grunts saw their opening and lunged. I pulled a matrix move, letting a jagged claw miss my throat by a hair. I grabbed the little freak by the neck and launched him like a football right into the path of an incoming fireball. Boom. He went up like a Roman candle. I didn't wait to watch the fireworks. I was already moving to the next one. I'd essentially become a human catapult. I was chucking bodies at their casters. Is he really fighting like that? Students whispered, totally floored. The students were stunned, and Liu Wenzi looked like he'd just seen a ghost. This definitely wasn't in the syllabus. I kept the pressure on the firecaster until he didn't know which way was up. It's a nightmare scenario: blast me and kill their friends, or don't blast and get carved up. It's a vicious cycle. Then the heavy hitter, the Black Name elite, finally decided to crash the party. Out of 100+ monsters, only a few stragglers were left. They realized they were cooked and bolted. I let them. I stayed on their tail. I wasn't just here for the scouts. I was going for the whole hive. I followed the trail into a pitch-black cavern. Suddenly, pale, spindly shadows dropped from the ceiling like spiders. I loosened my grip and let my hidden blade do the talking. 2 quiet thuds followed, one for the head, one for the body. The pair of lurkers see perfectly in this void. I hear bones snap as they gorge on their kill. Sudden flickers dance at the hall's edge. My gut screams, run, and I throw myself backward. Wall to wall, those freaks are crawling over the jagged stone. Jaw set, I bark the command, Black Name. His hulking mass becomes a blur of pure lethality. He swells a tidal wave of fur, hitting those goblins and launching them into the ceiling. They pop like overripe fruit under his weight. The cave walls are now a mural of gore. Then a sound that isn't human, a roar so loud it rattles my teeth, tears through the air. Coarse fur sprouts across my knuckles. My veins burn with power as a skyscraper-sized nightmare emerges. It locks eyes with my summon. My heart sinks. This is it, the final boss has finally arrived. The titan plants its heels and lunges, the mountain itself groaning under its heavy, thundering stride. Black Name doesn't flinch. He just leans in, meeting that freight train of a monster head first. Obsidian light bleeds from his talons. He strikes first, leaving 4 jagged marks across its thick hide. That sting is enough. The giant loses its mind, descending into a mindless, animalistic fury. A hand as wide as a door clamps onto Black Name's skull, smashing him into the dirt. Seeing him pinned, I trigger my reinforcement skill. Everything goes up by 20%. Searing white light cascades over him, and in a heartbeat, he tosses the brute aside and rips out a mouthful of its shoulder. The ogre's eyes turn crimson. The world blurs into a chaotic slaughter as they clash. My buff gave him the window he needed. The shockwaves from their collision pulse outward, shaking everything for 300 yards. Nearby students stop dead, convinced a level 12 boss is being taken down. Who fights a boss solo? A trio of scavengers come sprinting toward the noise. They're looking for easy loot. But when they see the carnage, they stop dead in their tracks. It's not a raid party, it's just me. I tighten my grip on the steel for the final stroke. I take the head. The health bar vanishes. Nobody dares move a muscle. Xiao and Liu just stare. They can't believe that pathetic pup turned into this. Then comes the elite squad led by that arrogant prick, Xiao Yijin. Fierce, he says with a smirk, but your pet looks thrashed. Want us to patch him up? Our priest is the best. Before he can finish, the girl behind him kicks his shin. I just grin and wave them off. They start to walk. Then they see the leaderboard. Yijian's face drops. He lets out a quiet curse, his cool guy act completely shattered. Now Leroy Yan approaches, all fake blushes and wide eyes. Same old manipulative act. Cheng Lin, I had no idea you were this capable, she stammers. Does she think that damsel in distress look still works on me? I don't even look at her. I walk past her. Back in the cave, Black Name eats his body, swirling with shadowy mist. This isn't just a level up. This is a total fundamental rewrite of his DNA. I wonder what kind of hell he'll unleash now. I don't have to wait long. Talons shred through the light. He's bigger, his fur a regal navy. He's gained intimidation and hellfire. Even his base potential just jumped an entire tier. 1 hour remains in the exam. I mount him, ready to hunt my way to the top. I set my sights on the next kill. The Twisted Tree King is waiting. Outside, the principal's face goes pale. He knows that thing kills you just by standing near it. I'm only level 4. A gap this wide is supposed to be impossible. The second I step inside, the blood-eyed trees stir. Their massive trunks groan and split open. Sharp branches lunge like spears, seeking my heart. I don't even blink. I dive straight into the teeth of it, my blade singing as it clears the scabbard. 5 strokes, 1 breath. I was a blur. The wood disintegrated instantly. My blood ran cold. 2 quick steps and I was on the monster's throat. I buried steel in its leg. Thick sap sprayed like a severed artery. Its life hit 0. The thing just folded like a house of cards. The pack swarmed, seeking blood. Black Name roared and crushed the nearest one to pulp. Dark fire exploded from him, consuming one, then jumping to the rest. They shrieked in panic. That black heat just wouldn't let go. It was drinking their souls. Even I felt a chill watching the carnage. His hellfire was completely broken. Seconds later, they were just piles of grey soot. The obsidian tide pulled back, sinking back into his skin. He absorbed pure essence instead of flesh. We both leveled up right then. 7,120 points. Then the ground literally ripped apart. Gilded vines shot up like spears. A primal roar shook my very soul. An army stood guard as a 100-meter-tall king rose. I stepped back. I had the stats, but this boss belonged to my summon. Kill! I ordered. His eyes flashed, and the dark flames roared back to life. He hit the king like a shadow comet. The heat was a void. Minions wailed in agony. I moved in, harvesting souls while they suffered. The king let out one final defiant scream. Gold whips lashed him, but he ignored the pain and kept charging. He aimed for the heart. His claws glowed with a sick, dark light. He shredded the bark. Gold spears stabbed through his hide from every side. But he is a tank. He just powered through the damage. They traded brutal blows until the black fire started its slow, deadly climb. The king froze in terror. It was being eaten alive. Desperation set in. It tried to run. He just smirked. The flames became heavy, dark chains. Then his assault turned truly explosive. They watched, paralyzed. A level 15 boss was being shredded like tissue paper. I didn't see them coming. Then a massive crash. The king was finally dead. White light hit me. Level 8. Plus another 3,000 points. This is a total cakewalk. Mia whispered, her jaw hitting the floor. 10 minutes and she had made the elite academy. Is it ever this easy? Xiaoyan just stared at my summon, shaking his head in disbelief. He is a nightmare. The fire finally died down. At rest, he stood 7 meters tall. My power hit 70 points. Level 10. Time for my first real promotion. The trial was over. A flash of light sent us back to the plaza. The crowd went wild. I held first place, my beast by my side. The principal was beaming. It was honestly a bit terrifying. A summoner hitting these numbers was unheard of. Total record breaker. Liu, your student is a freaking legend, the principal yelled. He dragged them over. Across the square, Ruiyan's face turned sour with regret. She had washed out. No elite school for her. She blamed me entirely. He hid his strength, she hissed, eyes burning with pure bitter salt. Lingshu was swarmed by staff. Our school just hit the jackpot. Relax, Lingshu, the principal noted. 19,500 is an elite score. I flashed a polite grin, though curiosity burned. My feet were already carrying me toward the rival school's zone. I felt my growth redlining. Every second, my power reached terrifying new heights. As I evolved further, I was already craving the rush of my first-class promotion. Back home, I dropped the bombshell on my mom and sister. 100 million credits hit my account for taking state. We were officially set for life. I retreated to my room, pulse racing. It was finally time for the big leap. First promotion meant the rank-up dungeon. I tapped the icon and reality dissolved instantly. Coordinate 0, a fractured hellscape where the last embers of humanity were flickering out. Was I their savior? Objective 1, butcher 1,000 monsters and keep the survivors breathing. Objective 2, feed the alpha beast so it can evolve. 10 players, 1 goal. 24 hours on the clock. No escape. I blinked, finding myself standing amidst jagged, smoking ruins. I didn't hesitate. I chose the rescue. Letting that beast feast would only starve Black Name's growth. Glass shattered nearby. A terrified, fragile girl hit the pavement hard. A blood-slick nightmare crawled from the shadows, lunging straight for her exposed throat. She scrambled for a nearby blade, her fingers scraping against the concrete inches short. Pure terror flooded her eyes. She shielded her face, waiting for the end to come. A silver arc sliced the air, decapitating the beast mid-lunge. The carcass slumped into the dirt. I looked at the shivering girl. I'm Cheng Lin. You're safe. Liu Yutye, she whispered. Suddenly, an emergency alert cut through my comms channel. Total retreat! She yelled, her blood draining as she grabbed my arm to run. She didn't get 5 words out before a literal car came hurtling through the air at us. I shoved her aside and braced my staff. The impact sent me skidding 30 feet through the rubble. She looked like she'd seen a ghost scrambling toward me to see if I was alive. I forced a breath and looked up. A slime-covered bipedal horror stood waiting for us. It was a grotesque nightmare. We're trapped. Liu Yu muttered, her gaze turning grim. She gripped her sword as the demon accelerated, the ground cracking under its weight. It launched like a missile. Liu Yu froze, but I was already a blur, meeting it head-on. I drew my concealed blade, meeting the demon's jagged claw with a shower of sparks. Steel shrieked against bone. The thing roared, swinging its other arm at my skull. A lethal roundhouse. Liu Yu, your sword now, I roared, dodging the strike. She threw it instantly. I caught it, feeling a sudden dark hunger for the kill. My turn. I challenged, trading dozens of killing blows in a frantic heartbeat. Our movements were a blinding blur of after-images and screaming metal. After 1,000 clashes, I finally spotted the split-second flaw in its defense. I slipped past the killing blow and sheared its arm off like wet paper. I didn't stop plunging the steel deep into its armored heart. The tip erupted from its back. Who are you? Liu Yu asked, clutching her side. I didn't have an answer, so I just asked what kind of hell I'd landed in. She described a month of torture that turned people into mindless monsters. Their minds snapped, leaving only feral predators driven by pure instinct. Now even the land was being warped. We were just rats trapped in a cosmic blender. The horror of this reality finally started to sink in. Suddenly a dozen shadows appeared as the ground began to groan and buckle. The air turned to lead. A wave of murderous intent rushed toward us like a flood. Hell beasts perched on every rooftop, their crimson eyes locked on us, while a literal wall of monsters tightened the noose from all sides. Panic turned everyone's legs to jelly, and you could see the light fading from their eyes. Hope was dead in every heart there. They stood there frozen and swallowing hard until Liu Yu broke the silence, barking, "Move with me." She shot me this look, clearly figuring I was with some other crew of survivors. I didn't correct her. I just started walking straight into the meat grinder. "Are you insane?" she hissed. "Get your ass back here before they rip you apart." "We're trapped. Stop playing hero." A cold smile touched my lips. "Actually," I told her, "you've got that backwards. They're the ones trapped in here with me. If I butcher every last one of these things, my score is going through the roof." Right on cue, a shadow manifested in a flash of blinding white light, standing 7 meters tall and letting out a roar that shook the very sky. His slitted pupils locked onto the oncoming tide of monsters with a gaze like ice. He surged into his true form, towering 28 meters high, crushing the pavement beneath his weight. As he loomed over the city ruins, like a heat-seeking missile, he dove into the swarm, wreathed in a furnace that turned every beast it touched into pure steam and energy. Everyone behind me was floored, unable to breathe. Then 10 of those hellspawns lunged at me in a perfectly timed strike. "Heads up!" Liu Yu screamed at the top of her lungs, her voice cracking with terror. She tried to jump in, but her body just gave out. I didn't flinch or retreat. I charged straight into the chaos. With a blade in each hand, I carved through them, like a hot knife through butter. Within seconds, the ground was stained with their remains. Liu Yu just gaped at me. I looked clean, not a trace of the rot on me, which should have meant I was weak. Then a dark thought hit her. 6 months back, while she was out scavenging, she'd seen types this strong, people the plague had never even touched. They were the ones who leveled the survivor camps, leaving everyone out in the open to be picked apart. They'd serve up their own kind to the monsters like a holiday dinner, breaking the legs of anyone who tried to run. Pure, unadulterated monsters. "We're all on the same side," they'd claim, but Liu Yu never bought that lie for a second. This guy was a different kind of animal entirely. But unlike those bastards, he'd already pulled her out of the fire twice. I could see the gears turning in her head as she took a shaky breath, a spark of old-fashioned rage flickering in her eyes. But then the entire vibe of the place turned cold. A blonde kid stepped out of the rubble, clutching some ancient-looking book and muttering a low rhythmic chant under his breath. Electricity began to hiss and pop around him. And in that moment, I knew things were about to get ugly. I moved on instinct, swinging my blade to catch a lethal strike from my blind side. Steel hit steel with a shower of sparks. A woman with a ghost-pale face slowly materialized out of thin air right in front of my eyes. She didn't blink when I blocked her hit. She just vanished in a heartbeat, reappearing dozens of yards away, watching me like a hawk. I dug my boots into the dirt and lunged at her, watching as she braced for the impact. Fear flashed in her eyes instantly. "What, not ready to swing yet?" I taunted before the words even cleared my teeth. The building exploded in fire as we clashed, and a massive guy sneered from the middle of the inferno. "You're really just a summoner." The blistering heat of the blast hit me like a truck, but I didn't so much as blink. I swatted the flames away as enemies started crawling out of the woodwork from every single angle. In these reincarnation trials, murder is a one-way ticket to being a wanted man. But cliques always form on the inside. This was a back alley route. I honestly didn't think anyone would be stupid enough to pick Mission 1. What, did they skip the survival classes at your school? Picking the disaster beasts is common sense, and these guys were looking at me like I was just another lamb for the slaughter. You ever heard the one about the master hunter who dresses up like the prey? I asked, my voice steady. I brought you all out here on a silver platter. You think I'd do that if I couldn't finish the job? A grin spread across my face. Dinner is served. Time for the black wolf to eat. A deafening roar tore through the wreckage as black fire exploded in a 100-meter circle around us. The shadows flowed into the massive black wolf, his body twisting and expanding, until he stood 8 meters tall, looking like a nightmare in the flesh. Everyone there felt a bone-deep primal terror clawing at their very souls. As the wolf lunged, a freezing wave of dread shot up through their bodies, pinning them to the spot. Their minds were on the verge of snapping. And just as those massive razor-sharp claws were about to descend, 3 of them managed to wake up. That poor bastard didn't even have time to scream. My obsidian wolf shredded him instantly. The rest of them just stood there, paralyzed by fear. They thought stalling my beast was a winning move. They were dead wrong. I'm just as lethal as he is. He dominates the entire field. You can't outrun him. They'll be lucky to survive the next 3 minutes. As the wolf lunged, the blonde kid panicked and started frantically chanting a spell. Violent lightning twisted together, hardening into chains 1/2 meter thick. They bound the wolf's limbs. Hit him now, I can only hold him for 10 seconds. He didn't even finish. The wolf gave one sharp jerk, and those chains shattered like glass. Impossible. My elite talent failed. The kid just stood there completely broken. I didn't waste a second before triggering my power boost. Sable's strength hit a whole new level. Seeing that the group finally stopped holding back, they rushed me head-on. The slender girl fractured into several ghostly decoys. She attacked from every angle while a storm of steel forced me into a retreat. Then I saw her, a girl with hair as white as a blizzard approaching. Frost spread from her boots, turning every monster into a lifeless statue. He's mine, the giant roared, charging with fire. They all moved in unison. They wanted me dead in seconds. Then a massive shout shook the entire field. They froze. A taunt forced them to glare at the guy with the shield. Sable appeared behind the distracted trio and tore them to pieces in a flash. Without stopping, Sable pivoted and slammed his claws into a nearby wall. Stone shrapnel peppered the girl, shredding her clothes and piercing her skin. Sable caught her instantly. Dark fire swallowed her as the air turned frigid. The frost claimed everything, leaving only a graveyard of silent ice sculptures. The big man froze solid. That made 7 targets down, only 1 left. My summons turned their murderous gaze toward the blonde kid. He turned pale through a desperate bolt of lightning and bolted. I easily dodged it all. A few steps later, it was over. Time to kill the matriarch? I nodded. Her death was the only way to save Peace Village. It was our only hope. Suling Sui walked up. Back again, Cheng Lin. Before I could answer, the big guy chimed in loudly. Wait, you're the legendary human Winter. You're incredible. We hit it off fast. I laid out the strategy for putting the matriarch down for good. They didn't hesitate. We headed straight for the city's core. At the bridge, hundreds of red eyes ignited. Sable went on a brutal offensive. He dove into the swarm. The street vanished under waves of black fire. I frowned. She found us. Suling's eyes turned to cold ice. She stood like a goddess of death, jagged ice spears floating around her. With a single thought, she unleashed her full power. The spears mowed them down like wheat. But the flood of monsters never ended. Every beast in the city was converging on us from all sides. The pressure was insane. I couldn't kill hundreds of thousands of them. I yelled, forget the small fry, Sable, go straight for the matriarch. Sable spun and sprinted toward the bridge where the air felt toxic. There she was. A massive crimson shadow plummeted from the heavens. The impact was absolute. He plowed through a row of homes, stopping 60 feet later. But he wasn't finished. Dragging himself from the wreckage, he stood tall. His slit eyes zeroed in on the nightmare looming ahead. A 60-meter ocular horror met his gaze. Shadowy fire surged from him in a savage, violent wave. He charged, turning into a streaking shadow of pure speed. Nearby structures buckled under his wake. The beast's writhing limbs were gargantuan. They whipped forward in unison, screaming against his hide like saws on steel. A crimson lash caught him, tossing him back. The distance between them tripled in a heartbeat. Usually raw power and armor carried him. But this onslaught was inescapable. Through the thunder, his obsidian fire went wild. A blistering heat consumed the air. Energy pulsed outward. He dove back in, draining his soul for one final lethal stand. A spike of agony hit me. I could feel every ragged breath through our mental link. His vitality was flickering out. Right then, Sulingsui's eyes flew wide. Blue light fractured reality. Every drop of water in the atmosphere evaporated instantly. The encroaching monster tide froze into jagged diamonds in the blink of an eye. Seizing the moment, I knew what had to happen. Force the evolution now or lose everything. We sprinted into the downtown ruins as a scream echoed. We didn't stop. He was right there. Broken and bleeding, he still anchored his talons into the dirt, fighting the crimson limbs. He crawled forward against the tide. I ran to his side, shouting for him to feast. I threw every healing charm and enhancement I had. A pale glow enveloped him. Rejuvenated, he tore through the red bindings and threw himself into the pack. Void fire blossomed like a deadly flower across the field. The massive eye focused on us. It wailed for its minions to retreat. But the ebony inferno had already trapped them. Stolen essence fueled his core. I didn't blink. I triggered the transformation. Initiation confirmed. A horrific dark energy erupted from his chest, reshaping him. A void column hit the sky as he hit 100 meters. My partner had finally mastered lightning speed. He unlocked an adamantite hide. Every core attribute surged by 60 points. I finally exhaled. He glared at the eyeball, a god reborn from the ashes. A celestial gold shimmered through his coat, radiating absolute authority. The beast's pupil shook, terrified by his predatory presence. Then its own hunger turned into a psychotic rage. It believed it was the apex. A blood-red limb cut through the sky. He was a stone wall. 15 strikes landed, only causing a slight shimmer on his skin. His void fire merged with lethal intent, exploding with his new massive scale. A 400-meter specter of a predator rose, turning the district into a dark furnace. He didn't pause, leaping at the ocular titan with claws ready to rend. His shadow avatar struck, blinding the horror's smaller eyes. Its screams filled the air. The limbs flailed in a chaotic, panicked mess. Every hit bounced off him uselessly. The nightmare was finally trapped. Desperate, it swallowed the core, forcing the divine energy into its veins. It swelled to a grotesque size, lunging to consume him. The collision shook the tectonic plates. The horizon burned as they tore at each other for what felt like an eternity. When the dust settled, he alone stood tall. The eye's light faded as the fire ate its remains. Suling and I looked at each other and grinned. The matriarch was dead. Our kill count was off the charts. Then a metallic ping rang out. We were pulled from reality. The clock hit 0 and the final ranking began. 8,560 monsters slaughtered. The Queen Mother is finally dead. Flawless performance. Evolution path unlocked, Master Architect. Rarity unique. A custom vocation forged by my own hands. I felt a surge as a new power awakened. Skill Ghost Blade. An edge existing between two worlds. It treats all armor like paper. It bypasses the flesh to shatter the soul. I stared at the data, completely breathless. Physical shields are useless against me. One heartbeat is all I need to end anyone without mental protection. Efficiency at its most terrifying. The weapon materialized in my grip instantly. Ancient runes crawled across the steel. My mental reserves plummeted as the blade took form. I sheathed the ghost edge and exhaled. This remains my secret weapon until the end. I smiled, checking my notifications. Friend requests flooded in, but one text stood out. The Ivy Leagues arrive at 2 o'clock. Get your ass to campus now. I left immediately. Principal Law was pacing at the school gates and sprinted toward me. You're finally here. The Big Five schools send scouts just to bag you. This level of hype was unheard of in our city. I followed him inside to meet the sharks. A glowing ring sat on the desk. Your spoils, high-tier gear, and technique books. My pulse jumped. My current kit was literal scrap metal after that last gauntlet. I linked my mind to the artifact. 2 golden notifications flickered. An unbreakable sword that radiates an aura of absolute command. It buffs every skill by 50%, plus a 100-meter blink technique. With this loadout, I finally felt like I could take on the world. A sleek black sedan pulled up. 5 scouts stepped out looking like titans. Liminzi moved with cold, calculated purpose toward the reception room. To scout for elites, you had to be 5th tier. Even the mayor bows to them. Inside, He-Fei leaned back and asked, "Where is this Cheng Lin kid?" I walked in. He scanned me from head to toe. "Impressive. You've got the spark. Join Cloudforge," he declared. An old man in a threadbare coat snorted. "Don't listen to him. Choose Cloud Sparrow and 3 legendary relics are yours today." "Only 3? That's an insult." Another scout barked, joining the fray. The air in the room turned brittle. It felt like a powder keg. One recruiter leaned in, promising the rarest materials for my next summon. "Anything you want, even my daughter's hand in marriage." The room went dead silent. That offer was pure insanity, even for a top-tier scorer like me. The bidding war reached impossible heights. The others finally started backing down. I shook my head. "The gear is fine, but keep your daughter." He-Fei laughed. "Suit yourself, if you prefer them a bit more mature." I just ignored him. Cloud Sparrow won, not for the looks, but because their offer was simply unbeatable. Orientation day arrived. The best of the best were gathering at the academy. I grabbed a room at random. It had everything a high-tier professional could need. Suddenly, my specialized phone buzzed with a priority message. "Summoning materials approved. Request anything else. I'll make sure you get the maximum." He-Fei leaned back, smiling. His assistant, Wu Yue, looked absolutely baffled. "Those resources could buy 4 top students. He isn't worth that much." "Wait until the ceremony tomorrow," He-Fei replied. "We'll see his true worth then." I laid the summoning components out on the floor with steady hands. I began the incantation. Blinding white light flooded every corner of the room. My heart hammered. Please, no more useless weaklings. My jaw tightened. Silver butterfly. Level 1. Only 4 measly points. A total joke. But I saw the hidden spark. Infinite potential. The insect landed on my hand. Absolute loyalty. 100%. Time to bind. Soul link. Then white-hot agony shredded my mind. Notification triple S. Rank talent unlocked. Myriad divine transformation. The butterfly dissolved into liquid light, becoming my perfect twin. "Master," it echoed. The sheer scale of its power finally hit me. I cracked the supply crate, revealing stacks of heavy plating. With one mental command, the butterfly flowed over my arm like mercury. Silver plates snapped into place, encasing my body in shimmering chrome. It felt weightless. A second skin. But this was only the beginning. It could devour metals to harden. Evolution through consumption. An unstoppable cycle. I messaged Hefe, "I need fuel now." 30 minutes later, the high-grade metallic delivery arrived. Rare top-tier minerals. Every single piece was pure wealth. Locked away, I let the butterfly feed on the raw ores. Everything changed. My suit became an impenetrable high-tier vault. 5 tons of metal felt weightless. I was a human mountain. I stepped into the hall. The team looked completely stunned. "Wait, a regular student swept the whole province," one guy asked. "Probably just a lucky fluke," a bitter voice spat nearby. The runner-up from the 11th province, he had 0 respect. He thought I was a fluke. Maple Leaf just sighed. Results talk. Before a fight started, a thunderous broadcast rattled the windows. "Freshmen, gear up. Meet at Anvil Plaza immediately. Move it." 2 weeks early, Chao Yan muttered. "Something is seriously wrong. Monsters are swarming the city. We are the cleanup crew." My blood ran cold. The dungeon nightmare was coming to Earth. The threat wasn't coming. It was already at our front door. That prick smirked. "Watch me, kid. I'm taking the top spot." "Try me. I'm winning this." The real hunt started now. The plaza was packed. Our instructor stood like a grim reaper. "You're here to kill or die. Real soldiers bleed." The secretary tapped his tablet, finalizing our death warrants. "The trials begin. Welcome to the killing fields of Liku Canyon. Perform or starve. Your future resources depend on this bloodbath." The gates groaned open, venting a freezing mist of rot. People were shaking. I'm not even leveled up. This is suicide. Eyes darted through the crowd, desperate for any sign of leadership. Luo Xuan stood like a tank beside his sister Luo Min. He'd promised to follow me. I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. Meet my sister, he said. The vibe felt incredibly heavy. She hid behind him, trembling. I sighed and sent the invites. From the shadows, the arrogant runner-up watched us like a hawk. Try not to embarrass yourself, Cheng Lin, he sneered, stepping into the abyss. I didn't waste a breath on him before we vanished. Seconds later, the entire class had entered the rift. Outside, a professor triggered a massive holographic feed. The scale of the dungeon was staggering. It spanned 60 square miles of death. We barely arrived when a roar shook the very atmosphere. The threat was dead ahead. Perfect. Time to see what I can really do. With one fluid motion, I prepared to strike. A flash of silver light exploded from my center. Metallic armor encased me as I pulled the staff sword from the void. I drew the silver blade from my back and lunged forward in one heartbeat. I became a blur, appearing before the monsters instantly. I used a dash just to close the gap. I swung with lethal, blinding speed. It felt like slicing through warm butter. I carved through them effortlessly and kept moving. I didn't stop until I was just a flickering shadow. In the blink of an eye, I had decimated the entire pack. The monsters slumped dead before they even knew it. Chung, you're a beast. I'm just here for the free experience. I love getting carried by a pro. The faculty watching the feed were paralyzed with shock. His base stats are impossible. No summoner should have that much raw melee power. A tutor wondered if the silver butterfly was actually a weaponized summon. It was an anomaly. Even the veteran scouts were stunned to see Zefei wearing a smug grin. But the leaderboard showed 10 other students were about to steal my top spot. Zefei went to speak but got a sharp smack to the head. He was drenched in sweat. Inside my silver armor was already stained with gore. These level 20 mobs die in one strike. I have officially hit the peak of the second rank. Even a rank 3 wouldn't kill me now. Suddenly a wave of pure darkness hit. Suicidal thoughts flooded my mind. Seeing me frozen, Luo Xuan screamed. Luo Ning killed the domain. Scared by his own power, Luo Ning quickly shut it down. I just gave him a smile. I'm fine. Shadows like that don't affect me. I checked my tracker. Only 120 points. This is too slow. I need first place. For the resources and the glory, I need that win. I made my move, vanishing and reappearing in a burst of white light. A massive demon wolf let out a howl that rattled the entire canyon. The sound terrified the rookie, but I didn't let him hide. I gave the order. Go Black Name. Wipe out every living thing in this canyon. He turned feral and vanished. He tore through the shadows. Moments later, my wrist tracker began pinging like crazy. My score was skyrocketing. I headed down a different path. I was farming 2 spots at once. Elsewhere, a girl summoned a serpent of red lightning. She struck the horde, her weapon hitting the ground with a thunderous crash. Red sparks fried everything. The girl looked disgusted by how weak they were. Pathetic, she muttered. Her sister was falling ill again, leaving Luolan feeling helpless. Suddenly, a heavy, predatory aura crushed the air. Before she could react, a blur of fire passed. Red lightning coiled around a black spear. A massive stone wolf cornered her. Those cold, vertical pupils made her tremble with fear. But then a look of pure madness crossed her face. She charged the beast head-on. Following her sister's lead, she charged ahead, stacking every buff and shield she had. Her combat power doubled instantly, giving her the strength to face a boss. She was ready to take on a rank 3 nightmare.